Raymond was often regarded as nothing more than worthless trash. Despite being born of noble blood, he was hated by everyone as a disgraceful legitimate child. People mocked and belittled him, convinced he had no talent or worth. But one day, Raymond's latent power suddenly awakened, revealing his ability to heal. He saw this newfound power as a blessing from the heavens, believing that, in its pity, the divine had granted him a gift to compensate for his lack of talent. In Raymond's world, those with the ability to heal others were revered as healers. Regardless of their social status, healers were treated with respect and enjoyed lives of wealth and honor. For Raymond, who was viewed as a disgraceful illegitimate child, becoming a healer was the only path to gaining recognition. He dedicated himself tirelessly, studying day and night, but despite all his efforts, he remained a pitifully inadequate healer. No amount of effort could overcome the barrier of talent, and despite Raymond's relentless dedication and hard work, he was unable to break through it. 5 years had passed, yet Raymond remained the same pathetic healer he had always been. Due to the weakness of Raymond's power, he was reduced to working as a mere servant, performing tedious chores for healers of higher rank. Even though Raymond was simply going about his daily life, he was constantly mocked and humiliated by his colleagues. They would call him a pathetic bastard, a dirty bastard, or a stupid bastard, even though he had done nothing to deserve their cruelty. Despite their relentless humiliation, Raymond chose to remain silent, enduring their abuse without retaliation. Raymond often questioned why he was born without any talent. But one day, while going about his usual tasks, a mysterious screen suddenly appeared before him. Startled, Raymond panicked and dropped the bucket of water he was holding. As he focused on the screen, he saw a message that stunned him. It declared that he had awakened as a player, with the class of a surgeon. A miracle had occurred, leaving Raymond bewildered. He wondered if he was hallucinating from overwork and wiped his eyes in disbelief. When he read the screen again, the word, surgeon, still puzzled him, as he had never heard of this word before. Raymond then thought that if he were going to hallucinate, it might as well have shown him how to make money instead. But before he could dwell on the thought, he was suddenly transported to another realm. Bewildered, Raymond looked around, realizing that his clothes had changed and that he was now in an entirely different world. As Raymond was still in shock, he heard a voice nearby. It was a doctor instructing his assistant to hurry and start a blood transfusion on a patient due to excessive bleeding. Raymond was bewildered by the situation, observing the doctors and realizing that he was hearing terms for the first time. To his surprise, he could understand everything being said despite it being unfamiliar. He wondered why he had this sudden knowledge and then realized that he was no longer a healer, he was now a doctor. Raymond was witnessing a surgery on a patient with a ruptured spleen, and the technique being used was called a splenectomy. He realized that, with the healing abilities he had learned in his world, he would not have been able to save the patient. However, with the medical procedures he was now observing, Raymond knew he could potentially save the patient. As he observed the surgical operation, Raymond was suddenly transported back to his own world. He sat on the ground in astonishment, trying to understand what had just happened. Raymond had never encountered such treatments or surgeries, where a patient's stomach could be opened to address their condition. Raymond considered the treatment he had witnessed to be a crude and primitive form of medicine. He chuckled to himself, convinced that what he had just experienced was merely a dream brought on by overwork. Despite not fully understanding why, his mind had absorbed all the information about it. Raymond recognized that the surgical techniques he had observed were far superior to his own healing power and were much more reliable. He thought to himself that if he could apply these techniques, he might be able to save patients in the Lipentana continent who could not be cured with his healing abilities. Raymond wondered what on earth had happened to him, and as he pondered, a screen appeared before him once again, revealing that he was now a surgeon with an SSS-rank job. The screen functioned like a system, displaying a status window that detailed Raymond's stats, including his experience points, skill points, stamina, intelligence, and level. The system informed him that, as a surgeon, his abilities were limited by his low level, and that he needed to gain more experience points to increase his stats. It also mentioned that he could experience unlimited growth if he leveled up. Although Raymond couldn't fully grasp what was happening, one thing was clear: an incredible miracle had just occurred in his life. At that moment, Raymond's teacher approached, shouting at him for neglecting his duties. The teacher called him a pathetic bastard and angrily demanded to know how long Raymond planned to crawl on the ground. Frightened, Raymond quickly apologized, saying he was just about to get up, but before he could, the teacher doused him with a bucket of water, humiliating him further. The teacher then sneered, telling Raymond that his talent was below F rank, making him unworthy of being in the prestigious Bellin clinic and that he belonged with the trash. Everyone looked at Raymond with disgust, whispering to one another that he didn't belong in the clinic, dismissing him as not being a real healer because his powers were below F rank. One student cautioned the others to be careful about what they said, warning that Raymond might overhear. But the others brushed it off, saying they didn't care if Raymond heard them. After all, he was just an illegitimate child, and nobody, not even his own family, cared about him. They pointed out that the only reason Raymond was allowed in the prestigious clinic was because of that one person. However, they added that even this person wouldn't care if anything bad happened to Raymond since he was just a weakling. Raymond heard everything they said about him, but he chose to ignore it, accepting their harsh words as truth. Just then, one of the students shouted that Chief Healer Lang had summoned him. Raymond was stunned that the head of the clinic wanted to see him. A few moments later, Raymond found himself inside the Chief Healer's room. Lang greeted him calmly while sipping a cup of tea, and Raymond bowed respectfully, returning the greeting. Lang remarked that it had been 5 years since Raymond became an apprentice, noting that it usually takes only 2 years for others to complete their training, yet Raymond hadn't improved at all. Raymond sadly acknowledged the truth in Lang's words. Lang continued, reminding Raymond that he had joined the clinic a year after him and had already advanced to a high B rank healer and risen to the position of chief healer. In response, Raymond, filled with fear, admitted that Lang possessed great talent, unlike himself, which was why Lang had been able to rise through the ranks and become a chief healer. At that moment, Lang informed Raymond that he and the other officials had decided that Raymond would never become a healer due to his lack of talent. They had also resolved to revoke his qualification as an apprentice, effective immediately. Lang then told Raymond to quit his apprenticeship and leave the clinic. Stunned by what he had just heard, Raymond quickly bowed his head and pleaded with Lang to reconsider his decision and grant him one last chance. But Lang explained that they had reached this conclusion after much deliberation. Lang further added that if it weren't for Raymond's parents, someone as talentless as Raymond would have been expelled within a year. They had already given Raymond more than enough time, but since there had been no improvement, they had decided that Raymond could no longer continue working at the clinic. Raymond felt lost, unsure of what to do. He thought to himself that becoming a healer was the only path to success for him as an illegitimate child. If he were to be expelled from the clinic, he would never be recognized as an official healer. At that moment, the system appeared before Raymond, displaying a message that he could treat patients using the technique of surgery. Raymond was stunned by the revelation. Deciding to trust the system, he resolved to use surgery to treat patients. Filled with newfound enthusiasm, Raymond boldly told Lang that he could prove his ability to heal patients. Lang smiled and asked Raymond how he intended to treat the patients. Raymond responded by asking Lang to assign him a patient, promising that he would successfully treat them, and requested one last chance to prove himself. Despite being ranked below F and considered the least talented, Raymond believed that with the medical knowledge now in his mind, he could still become a healer. Lang smiled menacingly and told Raymond that he must have thought treating patients was easy. Lang then agreed to give Raymond a chance and mentioned that he had the perfect patient for him to treat. He stated that if Raymond could successfully treat this patient, he would not be expelled from the clinic. Excited by the opportunity, Raymond eagerly accepted the challenge. As Raymond went to prepare for the task, Lang watched with confidence, certain that Raymond would fail and be expelled from the clinic. Raymond arrived at Rankin Street, where the patient he was set to treat lived. He felt nervous about the task, doubting whether he would be able to successfully treat the patient. This was Raymond's first time treating a patient, and he knew that failure could mean being expelled from the clinic, ending his apprenticeship, and losing his chance to take the certification exam. If that happened, he would become an unauthorized doctor, unrecognized for the rest of his life. Raymond feared that if he was reported while treating the patient, he might be sent to jail immediately. He worried that people would not only despise him for being an illegitimate child but also view him as a criminal. He imagined that they would see him as someone who had tarnished his family's name and would tell him to hide away in some unknown place and die quietly, as he was no longer needed. As he approached the patient's house, he was consumed by these troubling thoughts. Suddenly, the door swung open, hitting Raymond in the head and causing him to fall to the ground. A child emerged from the house and asked Raymond who he was. Before Raymond could introduce himself, the child ran up to him, tears of excitement in his eyes, and asked if he was from the Bellin Clinic. The child then ran inside and shouted to his mother that the doctor had arrived. The mother came outside to verify the news and, upon seeing Raymond, became thrilled that what her child had said was true. Raymond was about to introduce himself to the mother, but she interrupted him by expressing her gratitude for his visit and inviting him into their home. Raymond tried to explain that he was not a healer but merely an apprentice. However, the mother immediately grabbed his hand and said she didn't care whether he was an apprentice or a healer. As long as Raymond could save her husband, she was grateful for his help. The mother explained to Raymond that the clinic had refused to help her husband because they could not afford the fees for the necessary treatment. The clinic had informed her and her family that they would not be providing any assistance. She added that she was now in a heart-wrenching situation, forced to watch her husband suffer and die without being able to do anything to help him. Upon hearing the mother's explanation, Raymond examined the paper detailing her husband's symptoms. He noted that the husband had a severe infection in his buttocks, a condition that required at least a B-rank healer to treat. Raymond understood that a poor family like theirs would be unable to afford a high-ranking healer, leaving them with no choice but to watch him suffer and die without proper treatment. Raymond recalled a similar situation from his childhood. Back then, he had wandered the streets and visited people's homes, pleading for help as his mother was seriously ill. He had promised to do whatever it took to repay them if they could provide money for her treatment. He had cried and begged for their assistance. As he relived this memory, the child tugged at Raymond's sleeve, urging him to save her father. Raymond snapped back to the present and, upon hearing the child's plea, asked where the patient was. The mother then guided Raymond to where her husband was. At that moment, the system appeared before Raymond, displaying a message that he had volunteered to treat the patient and had been awarded a special bonus along with 5 skill points. Raymond was puzzled about what skill points were. As he contemplated this, the screen clarified that skill points were earned through special achievements and quest completions. He could use these points to purchase skills that would assist him in treating patients. Upon seeing this, Raymond understood what skill points were. The system then displayed another message, informing him that a new quest had been assigned, to treat his first patient. The required medical technique for the treatment was a half scalpel, and the difficulty of the quest was classified as low rank. If Raymond successfully treated the patient, he would receive a bonus level and 10 skill points. Determined to succeed, Raymond resolved to treat his first patient effectively. Even though his primary motivation for being there was to avoid being expelled from the clinic, he was committed to saving the patient at all costs. Raymond thought that he might be able to treat the patient successfully, as he not only had the heal skill but also possessed surgical knowledge. Despite his low level and the limitations of his current skills, he believed that leveling up would grant him even better abilities. If he could successfully treat the patient, he would become an exceptional healer and gain recognition from others. Approaching the patient, Raymond introduced himself as being from the Bellin Clinic. However, the patient did not respond and merely lay in bed, appearing close to death. As Raymond approached the patient, a foul odor emanated from him, making it difficult for Raymond to breathe. The mother of the child asked Raymond what he was doing, noticing that he had frozen in place. Meanwhile, Raymond was panicking, unsure of how to proceed with treating the patient. Although he had learned about this during his training, the reality of his first patient encounter caused him to forget everything, leaving him overwhelmed and uncertain about what to do. At that moment, Raymond shook his head and reminded himself that he needed to pull himself together to treat the patient. As he focused, one of his passive skills, Heart of Steel, activated. This legendary ranked skill gave Raymond a steely determination and allowed him to better handle the situation with the patient. However, because his proficiency with the skill was low, its effects were unstable. To achieve perfect determination and will, Raymond needed to improve his proficiency with Heart of Steel. As Heart of Steel took effect, Raymond's heart began to calm. He then asked the patient's wife where her husband's problem areas were. She explained that her husband had developed abscesses around his buttocks, which had started to swell rather than subside. She also mentioned that he had developed a fever and was now unable to get up at all. Raymond decided to check the patient's blood pressure, heart rate, and breathing rate. He was relieved to find that the patient had not yet gone into septic shock. If he treated the patient quickly, there was still a chance for recovery. Raymond then informed the patient's wife that he would examine the area with the abscess, and she agreed. Raymond examined the abscess and realized that treating it with the heel skill alone would be challenging. However, from a medical standpoint, abscesses were relatively basic conditions, and Raymond felt confident that he could manage it. The patient's wife asked Raymond if he was capable of treating the abscess, as the clinic had told her that her husband's condition was too severe for anyone but a high-ranking healer to address. Raymond assured her that the illness could be treated. Both the mother and child were thrilled by this news. Raymond then explained that he would need their assistance, and the child's mother eagerly promised to do anything she could to help. Raymond instructed the patient's wife to prepare clean water that had been thoroughly boiled and to cool it down as much as possible. She agreed to do so immediately. He also asked her to prepare a clean, sharp knife. The patient's wife was puzzled about why a knife was needed for the treatment, but Raymond explained that the knife needed to be heated over a fire. The patient's wife, worried, asked Raymond what kind of treatment he planned to perform. With a reassuring smile, Raymond explained that he would be performing surgery on her husband. The child asked his mother what surgery meant, and she responded that she didn't know, as it was a term she had never heard before and was unfamiliar with. After preparing the materials for the treatment, Raymond took out the heated knife and was about to begin cutting the abscess. Seeing this, the patient's wife panicked, grabbing Raymond's hand and loudly questioning what he intended to do to her husband. Raymond assured her that he was going to cure her husband, but she was not convinced. She asked why he was using a knife instead of the heel skill. Raymond reassured her that he was committed to saving her husband and asked for her trust and cooperation. Raymond also promised her that he would make sure her husband could laugh and enjoy life with their daughter again. Although the mother remained doubtful about Raymond and his methods, she decided to trust him. She released his hand and prayed that nothing would go wrong with the treatment. At that moment, Raymond reminded himself that he could not afford to make any mistakes and must succeed in treating the patient. He believed that a healer's mindset required both a cool head and a passionate heart to approach patient care with confidence. With his surgical knowledge, Raymond found that an abscess removal of this level was so basic it almost seemed too simple to be called a surgery. Raymond began by cutting the abscess to drain the fluid. The mother and her child were terrified by the sight, and the daughter called out to her father, worried for him. Raymond focused on staying composed, reminding himself to follow his surgical knowledge meticulously. He used a clean cloth to wipe away the pus and then applied sterile water that had been boiled to cleanse the inside of the abscess until no more pus was visible. Finally, Raymond used the knife to remove all the dead tissue. After a few moments, Raymond finished cleaning out the pus and the rotting tissue. As a final step, he applied a potion made from herbs with natural antibiotic properties to the wound. With the treatment complete, Raymond had successfully treated his first patient. The mother and her child were overjoyed to hear that the procedure was finished. The mother asked Raymond if the surgery had gone well. Raymond instructed her to check on her husband to see for herself. After a few moments, the patient's eyes opened. The mother and child were overjoyed to see that he was awake and able to speak to them. Raymond then informed the mother and child that he would examine the patient to check for any remaining fever. After examining him, Raymond confirmed that the fever had completely subsided. He assured them that the husband would fully recover within a few days. Overjoyed by the news, the patient's wife repeatedly thanked Raymond, expressing that she couldn't find words to convey her gratitude. Raymond replied that he had simply done his duty and that it was his responsibility from the start. The patient's wife then told Raymond that he had done much more than just performs the surgery. She explained that no one else had been willing to treat her husband. She had visited many clinics seeking help, but each one turned her away, citing a lack of funds as the reason for not taking on her husband's case. Thanks to Raymond, she would not lose her husband. She expressed that Raymond was the savior of their family. Raymond felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude upon hearing how much his help meant to the family. Just as he was reflecting on this, the child ran up to him and hugged him tightly, thanking him for what he had done. This was the first time Raymond had ever been shown such heartfelt gratitude, and it filled him with happiness. As he embraced the child, Raymond thought to himself that this must be the true joy of treating a patient. When Raymond returned to the clinic to report on the situation, he informed Lang that he had successfully treated the patient. Lang was shocked to hear this and accused Raymond of lying, unable to believe that someone with such mediocre healing abilities could have treated an illness typically handled by high-rank healers. Raymond thought to himself that it was of no surprise that Lang didn't believe him, given that the illness was beyond the capabilities of someone who wasn't even an F-rank healer. The heal power was not an all-encompassing ability capable of curing every disease simply by placing a hand on a patient. In Lipentana, heal was understood as a method to boost vitality. While this enhancement could lead to several beneficial healing effects for various illnesses, it was ineffective against many others. For instance, in the case of the pus Raymond treated in the patient's buttocks, heal would be useless no matter how much it boosted vitality, as the pus inside the abscess needed to be physically extracted to address the issue. Raymond reflected that the issue was not limited to just the pus in the buttocks but extended to many problems with Lipentana's treatment methods overall. The reliance on heal alone led to a lack of thorough research into alternative treatment methods. As a result, many illnesses could not be cured by heal alone. Lang shouted at Raymond, demanding to check on the patient himself. Raymond was stunned by Lang's loud voice. Lang then warned Raymond that if he was lying, Lang would ensure Raymond faced severe consequences. He told Raymond to prepare for punishment if he was found to be dishonest. With that, Lang stormed out of his room, slamming the door behind him. Meanwhile, Raymond took a deep breath, reassuring himself that he had done nothing wrong and should not be afraid. At that moment, the system appeared before Raymond, informing him that he had completed his quest and was about to receive his rewards. Raymond had leveled up during the process and gained 10 skill points. The system also noted that once Raymond reached level 40, he would be able to upgrade his class from Surgeon to Rookie Resident, a higher rank than Surgeon. Seeing this, Raymond wondered if his rank would continue to rise as he leveled up. If so, he could eventually advance to becoming a specialist and, ultimately, a professor. At that moment, the system appeared again, announcing that Raymond had received a special bonus to commemorate his successful treatment of his first patient. Additionally, his level had increased to level 3. As Raymond reviewed his stats, he decided to allocate 2 points to his senses. He had struggled earlier when his hands didn't move as precisely as he needed them to during the abscess operation. With a warm smile, Raymond thought to himself that if he continued to level up at this rate, he would soon become an exceptional healer. Despite starting with a low talent rank below F rank, Raymond believed that with his newly acquired powers, he could still rise to become one of the best healers. As Raymond was celebrating by himself, Lang returned. With an annoyed expression, Lang informed Raymond that he was fortunate because the patient had recovered on his own and Raymond hadn't needed to do anything. Despite his irritation, Lang reluctantly acknowledged his promise and decided to give Raymond another chance. Lang then took Raymond to a different room filled with numerous patients. He informed Raymond that he would have 15 days to prove himself at the medical relief station and warned him that he wouldn't be as fortunate as he was the first time. Raymond felt relieved, as this opportunity to see patients was crucial for leveling up. It was an ideal setting for him to apply his medical knowledge, similar to an emergency room. However, Raymond was concerned about one challenge: he would have to work alongside colleagues who frequently bullied and mocked him. Raymond tried to greet and introduce himself, but was immediately pushed down by one of his colleagues. As he lay on the ground, he could hear the whispers and feel the disdainful stares of his peers, who were clearly belittling him. One of them handed Raymond a cloth and ordered him to clean the floor instead. Raymond felt a surge of worry, realizing that if this treatment continued, he might never get a chance to see or treat any patients. He feared that if he didn't manage to treat a patient within the 15-day period, he would be expelled from his apprenticeship again. Raymond knew he had to address this situation urgently. If things didn't change, it might be more than a year before he got another opportunity to work with patients. Raymond decided that instead of waiting for patients to come to him, he would take the initiative and approach them directly. As he scanned the room, he noticed one of the students named Hansen, who was mopping the floor. Hansen was a C-rank student, neither outstanding nor terrible, but average in his performance. Raymond approached Hansen and took the mop from him, asking if he was feeling tired. Hansen looked puzzled by the sudden interaction. Although Hansen was somewhat uncomfortable, he was noticeably kinder compared to the other students in the first aid station. Raymond told Hansen that he seemed busy, so he offered to help by taking over the cleaning duties at the first aid station. Hansen was taken aback by Raymond's offer. Raymond added that he felt bad for not contributing while Hansen was working hard, and he genuinely wanted to assist. Hansen, grateful for the offer, said he would appreciate Raymond's help with the tasks. Raymond then told Hansen that, when the other healers were not around, he would assist with patient care, such as wrapping bandages or applying medicinal herbs. Hansen, however, expressed concern, fearing that the senior healers would be very angry if they discovered Raymond treating patients without their approval. Raymond, trying to sound convincing, told Hansen in a charming manner that since the healers mostly stayed in their offices and only came out when there were patients, no one would notice if Raymond took care of some patients while they were away. Hansen agreed with Raymond's point but remained hesitant about allowing him to treat patients. Seeing Hansen's reluctance, Raymond put on a disappointed expression and told Hansen that if he didn't want Raymond to handle the patients, he wouldn't. Raymond then suggested that Hansen forget about what he had just said. Hansen, feeling guilty at seeing Raymond's disheartened expression, thought to himself that cleaning the first aid station was the hardest part of the job. It would be much easier for Hansen if Raymond took over the cleaning. After considering this, Hansen asked Raymond once more to confirm that he would handle the entire cleanup. Raymond, with a cheerful smile, assured Hansen that he would take care of it all. Relieved, Hansen agreed to let Raymond treat the patients when the senior healers were not around. Raymond was satisfied and happy to help treat patients, even for minor injuries. Although these injuries were small, they still provided valuable experience points. Raymond took on most of the minor treatments, accumulating experience steadily. He thought to himself that even though the system only awarded him 1 point per treatment due to their simplicity, he was still pleased. Raymond believed that every little bit counts, thinking, a penny saved is a penny earned. After 3 days at the first aid station, Raymond had reached level 4. He decided to allocate his remaining stats to his senses, believing that sharper senses would make him a better surgeon. Raymond then approached the patient and informed him that he was ready to begin the treatment. Raymond thought to himself that if he continued to gain experience at this rate, he would one day become the best healer. He envisioned a future where his success would bring him grandiose luxury, a 5-story mansion with marble floors, juicy steaks, and the finest wines before bed. He imagined never facing financial hardships again, nor being treated worse than the lowest servants despite his noble lineage. Raymond also looked forward to escaping the desolate life he had endured and no longer having to merely envy those who lived in luxury. As Raymond was treating one of his patients, he reassured her that she would feel better soon, having applied the medicine. The patient responded by complimenting Raymond, saying that he was not only handsome but also kind, and that despite meeting many healers, Raymond was the nicest she had encountered. Raymond smiled and replied that he believed it was important to be warm and empathetic, as treating patients coldly would only add to their distress. Raymond reflected on his own experience of being treated coldly when his mother was ill and he sought help from others, only to find no one willing to assist. The patient then shared her own experience, saying that Lang had treated her before but had been the complete opposite of Raymond, unkind and dismissive, which made her feel worse. She added that Raymond's kindness had made her smile throughout the day, providing her with great comfort. Raymond responded by saying that it was his duty to ensure his patients felt comfortable and happy during their treatment. At that moment, the system notification appeared, informing Raymond that his kindness to a patient had earned him the achievement, Kind Healer. Additionally, Raymond's fame had increased, and he had acquired 5 skill points. Raymond thought to himself that these skill points would be useful for enhancing his surgical skills. After the patient was treated and about to leave, Raymond reminded her to take care of herself. After everyone had left, it was time for Raymond to clean the first aid station, as it was now his responsibility. Although Raymond didn't particularly enjoy cleaning, he was determined to keep his promise to Hansen. As he scrubbed the station, a strong, unpleasant odor filled the room, and Raymond found himself wondering how long it would take to finish cleaning the entire area. Raymond considered putting less effort into cleaning the room, thinking that since nobody was around, it wouldn't matter. He noted that Lipentana didn't seem to prioritize cleanliness and that Hansen hadn't put in much effort either. However, just then, Raymond slapped his cheeks and reminded himself that it was wrong to cut corners. He resolved to give his best effort, believing that no matter the circumstances, he should always take pride in his work. Raymond realized that a dirty environment was harmful to patients and that maintaining cleanliness was fundamental medical knowledge. Determined to uphold these standards, he committed to thoroughly cleaning the first aid station, despite the considerable effort required. To stay motivated, Raymond imagined his future luxurious life, picturing the various delicious foods he would enjoy once he succeeded. A short while later, Raymond finally finished his work, and the first aid station was thoroughly cleaned, gleaming like never before. However, Raymond was exhausted and sore from the extensive cleaning. He resolved to boost his stamina to make such tasks less tiring and to enable him to work longer without fatigue. As Raymond opened the system, he was greeted with multiple new achievements. After Raymond finished cleaning the first aid station, he earned the achievement, Hygiene Improvement, and was awarded 10 skill points. Additionally, he received bonus points for his excellent performance, earning another 10 skill points. Raymond leveled up to level 5 and gained a new privilege that allowed him to work more efficiently and purchase skills at the market. With the shop now open, Raymond wondered what he should buy. The system informed him that he could purchase normal skill points and passive skills, and there was a special offer for first-time purchases. He could acquire a unique rank skill for only 40 points. Raymond was presented with 3 unique skills: Iron Man's Strength, Surgeon's Nimble Hands, and Wise Man's Eyes. Each skill was of unique rank. The system advised Raymond to choose carefully, as such a special opportunity was rare. Raymond was torn, wanting to select all 3 skills but knowing he could only acquire one. As Raymond was contemplating which unique rank skill to choose, Hansen shouted in panic, alerting everyone that a patient was vomiting blood and required immediate treatment. Hansen instructed one of his colleagues to use Heal on the patient, as their condition was critical. Raymond realized that a patient vomiting blood was in a severe state, and that treating them with Heal would require at least an A rank level of the skill. Concerned, Raymond worried about the patient's dire situation. Heal was a power that stimulates the body's life force to activate coagulation, but in severe cases of bleeding, its effectiveness diminishes. Raymond knew that only Director Bucks possessed an A-rank healing power at Bellin Clinic. In the clinic where Raymond was working, there were only a few B-rank healers, which meant that the patient might die if he didn't receive proper treatment in time. Raymond suddenly recalled the surgical techniques he had learned. According to his training, there was a method to operate on a patient in this condition, but he hesitated. As a beginner resident, Raymond was unsure if he could handle the procedure effectively, as he would typically need to be a skilled resident to guarantee the patient's survival. Lang arrived and observed the patient, noting the severe bleeding. Hansen explained that Director Buck, an A-rank healer, was currently in the countryside treating a noble, so they were unable to provide the necessary level of care. As the patient suddenly coughed, blood splattered onto Lang's hand. Furious at the sight, Lang declared that there was no hope left for the patient and instructed Hansen to send the patient back from where they came. Upon hearing Lang's decision, Raymond ran up to him and insisted that they at least try using Heal on the patient, as there might still be a chance for survival. Lang replied that Heal would be ineffective at this point, but Raymond persisted, urging Lang to use it since he was a B-rank healer. Annoyed by Raymond's insistence, Lang snapped that Raymond had no right to tell him what to do, as Raymond was merely a failed student who had yet to advance from apprentice status after 5 years. Lang then told Raymond that if he was so concerned about the patient, he could attempt to treat the patient himself. Raymond was hesitant, knowing there was a high risk of failure and the possibility of being blamed if the patient's condition worsened. As he was contemplating his next move, a quest suddenly appeared before him. The quest, marked as high difficulty, offered a significant reward. If Raymond could successfully treat the patient despite the challenging condition, his bonus would be doubled and he would receive 30 skill points. Raymond was initially shocked by the quest but soon resolved to take on the challenge. He decided he would treat the patient. As he reviewed the system, Raymond began to focus on which unique skill would best aid him in this critical situation. At that moment, the patient coughed again, blood spilling from his mouth. He looked at Raymond and begged for help. Raymond thought to himself that the situation was beyond his current abilities, but if no one stepped in to assist, the patient would die. Determined to make a difference, Raymond knew he had to be the one to take action. Raymond thought to himself that he needed to be rational. Even if he tried to help, he doubted his current skills would be sufficient to save the patient. It would be smarter to focus on easier cases over the next 2 weeks and wait for another opportunity. But as he looked at the patient, he couldn't bring himself to abandon him. Raymond decided to take the risk and help, knowing he was likely the only one who could. At that moment, he manifested the skill, Iron Heart, granting him a steely resolve and a strong spirit. Raymond resolved that, despite the daunting challenge, he could not walk away from a dying patient. Raymond asked Lang once more if it was truly permissible for him to attempt treating the patient. Lang was taken aback by Raymond's question. Raymond explained that if Lang granted him permission, he would make an effort to save the patient who was on the brink of death. Lang, astonished, told Raymond that he must be out of his mind but conceded, allowing Raymond to proceed with the treatment. Lang warned Raymond that he would be fully responsible for the outcome and would have to bear the blame if anything went wrong. With that, Lang walked away. Raymond questioned whether he could manage this alone, as performing the surgery by himself was already challenging enough. Just then, Hansen approached Raymond and asked if he needed any help with the patient. Raymond was surprised by Hansen's offer. Hansen then explained that he didn't want to see the patient die, so if Raymond was going to help, he would assist Raymond. Raymond felt a surge of relief, grateful that someone was willing to support him. He took Hansen's hand and thanked him for offering his help, acknowledging that he was in desperate need of assistance. Even though they were prepared to help the patient, Hansen was puzzled about how they could succeed, given the limitations of their heal abilities. Raymond explained that instead of relying on heal, he planned to use a different approach to save the patient. Hansen was intrigued but confused about this alternative method. Raymond said that, due to the urgency of the situation, he would explain the method to Hansen later. He then instructed Hansen to quickly gather the supplies he would need for the procedure. After a few moments, Hansen reported to Raymond that he had followed his instructions. The knife was boiled in clean water and sanitized with fire, and the thin thread was also sanitized with medicinal herbs. However, Hansen was still puzzled about what Raymond planned to do with these items. Raymond told Hansen that he would understand once he saw the procedure. Hansen observed that the patient was unconscious, and Raymond explained that he had sedated the patient using a hallucinogen. Raymond was relieved that he had prepared catgut in advance, a type of thread that naturally degrades through the body's own proteolytic enzymes. This material, commonly used by mages from the Magician's Tower, was easy to obtain and proved useful for the surgery. Raymond took the cloth that Hansen had prepared and wiped the patient's belly. Hansen, puzzled, asked Raymond what he was planning to do. Raymond responded that he was going to perform surgery on the patient. Hansen was taken aback by Raymond's use of the knife to make an incision in the patient's belly, shocked by the unexpected procedure. Raymond observed the fat, muscles, and blood as he cut open the abdomen. Although he had mentally prepared for this step, seeing it in reality caused his mind to go blank. Panicking and unsure of his next move, Raymond's Iron Heart skill activated, fortifying his resolve. This newfound strength and courage helped Raymond regain his confidence and focus. Raymond was resolute in his decision to heal the patient, driven by his determination to become the best healer in the world. He was neither worthless nor insignificant, he was determined to earn the admiration of everyone. As he envisioned the wealth and honor awaiting him, his resolve strengthened, and he vowed to save the patient no matter the cost. Raymond needed to rely on his acquired surgical knowledge, believing that following the techniques he had learned would ensure a successful outcome. Meanwhile, Hansen was in shock, questioning Raymond's actions and considering whether he should intervene. Despite the tension, Raymond remained intensely focused on the surgery. At one point, he confidently told Hansen, "I'm definitely going to save the patient." Hansen was struck by the determination in Raymond's eyes, a stark contrast to the meek and easy-going image he had previously had of him. This newfound intensity revealed a side of Raymond that Hansen had never seen before. Raymond noticed a yellow liquid leaking from the duodenum and suspected a perforated duodenal ulcer. To address the issue, he needed to tie off the artery to stop the bleeding and seal the hole. He instructed Hansen to lift the red organ, but Hansen was initially confused about what to do. After a moment of realization, Hansen was shocked by Raymond's request but ultimately complied and lifted the organ as directed. Raymond observed that he needed to excise the perforated section with the knife. Although he knew the necessary steps in his mind, his hands struggled to follow through. Realizing that this could lead to failing the surgery, Raymond recognized that he needed to regain control. He told himself that he had to pull himself together and not let this lapse continue. Raymond then considered purchasing the skill, Surgeon's Nimble Hand, which he had been postponing. While good stamina and exceptional intelligence were important, he realized that the ability to save patients was more important. Determined to enhance his skills, Raymond navigated to the shop section in the system and bought the Surgeon's Nimble Hand ability. Upon purchasing the ability, Raymond received a bonus, and the minimum amount of points required for the purchase was used. With the new ability, Raymond could now access advanced surgical skills once a week and his sense stat was increased by 10. As he activated the ability, Raymond immediately felt his fingers become more delicate, enhancing his precision and sensitivity. Although Raymond was still awkward and unfamiliar with the new ability, his hands had become more refined, and it felt like the deficiency he had been experiencing was now resolved. Raymond then asked Hansen to hand him the thread, which Hansen promptly did. Raymond needed to tie off the artery to stop the bleeding. Thankfully, with his fingers now more nimble, the procedure became significantly easier. After addressing the bleeding, Raymond focused on closing the hole in the duodenum. He also needed to mobilize the omentum, which connects to the stomach, and use a gram patch to seal the perforation. Raymond also needed to sever the vagus nerve, which was involved in gastric acid secretion. After carefully wiping away any gastric juice and rinsing the area with clean water to prevent contamination, he prepared to close the wound. With this final step, he would complete the treatment. After Raymond finished closing the wound, a message appeared on the screen informing him that his first open surgery was successful. He had achieved the title, Father of Surgery, and would be recorded as a pioneer of the field for future generations. Additionally, Raymond earned 100 skill points, along with a bonus of 30 skill points. He also received the achievement, Passionate Healer, for successfully treating a patient whose condition was well beyond his previous capabilities and rank. Overwhelmed with joy at successfully completing the operation, Raymond collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he felt immense relief for having treated the patient. At that moment, one of the students informed Lang about the incident. Lang was astonished to hear that Raymond had managed to treat the patient who had been coughing up blood. Unable to believe it, Lang went to find Raymond and verify the situation for himself. Lang couldn't believe that Raymond, a healer below F rank, could treat a patient who had been vomiting blood. When Lang opened the door, he was astonished to see the patient, who had been in critical condition just moments ago, now talking and smiling while conversing with Raymond. The patient thanked Raymond for his efforts, and Raymond advised him not to let his guard down, reminding him to be cautious as he had just recovered. At that moment, Lang approached Raymond angrily and asked if Director Buck had come to treat the patient. Raymond was shocked to see Lang there. Lang then, visibly upset, demanded to know who had healed the patient, expressing his disbelief that Raymond was the one responsible for the treatment. Raymond hesitantly confirmed that he was the one who had treated and cured the patient. Lang, still incredulous, shouted at Raymond, accusing him of lying. He argued that someone with Raymond's healing power, which was below F rank, should not have been able to treat a patient who required at least an A rank healer for such an illness. Raymond explained to Lang that he hadn't relied solely on his heal power to treat the patient. He added that he had also used ancient medical techniques to aid in the treatment. Not wanting to reveal the full extent of his powers, Raymond chose to share only a partial truth. Lang was puzzled by the mention of these medical techniques. To clarify, Raymond fabricated a story, telling Lang that during a trip to the northern region, he had fallen off a cliff and accidentally discovered an ancient ruin. There, He had learned a long-lost healing technique known as medical techniques. Lang shouted at Raymond, declaring that he couldn't believe such an obvious lie. Raymond was terrified, fearing that Lang had seen through his story and that he was about to face trouble. Just then, the patient woke up and confirmed to Lang that Raymond's story was true. To prove it, the patient showed Lang his healed abdomen, demonstrating the effectiveness of Raymond's treatment. As the patient showed his healed abdomen, he told Lang that this was the evidence proving Raymond had saved him. Lang was stunned by the sight. The patient then reminded Lang that he had previously told others to leave the patient to die. He accused Lang of not only failing to save the patient but also attempting to frame Raymond. The patient told Lang that he should be ashamed of himself. The patient then grabbed a bowl filled with urine and threw it at Lang, covering him in it. Lang was shocked and appalled by the treatment, but the patient remained unfazed. He told Lang to leave immediately and warned him that next time, he wouldn't be let off so easily. After Lang left the room, humiliated, the patient turned to Raymond and apologized for the mess. Raymond reassured him, saying not to worry about it. He expressed that, thanks to the patient's defense, he felt much better and thanked him for standing up for him. After a few moments, Raymond returned to his usual work, cleaning the room. As he worked, he overheard his colleagues whispering about his medical techniques, dismissing them as nonsense and suggesting that he had merely gotten lucky with the patient. Raymond understood that people's views of him might not change simply because he had successfully treated a patient with ancient techniques. Nevertheless, he hoped for at least a small measure of acknowledgement or appreciation. Noticing Raymond's depressed mood, Hansen approached him, took the broom, and offered to help with the cleaning. Raymond was surprised by Hansen's offer and insisted that it wasn't necessary, as he had no other tasks. However, Hansen insisted that cleaning was part of his job, so Raymond shouldn't worry about it. Raymond sensed that everyone was now viewing him differently. Even Hansen looked at him with a fierce glare that seemed almost hostile. In the past, such treatment would have left Raymond feeling lost, but surprisingly, he felt indifferent now, thanks to his iron heart ability. Raymond thought to himself that once he became the best healer, he would use his power to assert himself in the Belland Clinic. As Raymond pondered his future, Lang approached him with a menacing demeanor. He informed Raymond that he was to attend the upcoming Imperial Palace birthday festival as a dispatch healer. Raymond was taken aback by the request to go to the Imperial Palace. Lang added that Raymond should feel honored for the opportunity to participate in such a prestigious event. The birthday festival was a grand banquet celebrating the birth of the founding king, an enormous event held at the Imperial Palace where all the nobles of the capital would gather. It was such a significant occasion that even the palace's own healers would not be sufficient to cover the event, so each clinic was required to send healers to assist. Being chosen to attend the Imperial Palace festival was a mark of recognition and honor for a healer. However, Raymond was not thrilled about the offer at all. To him, the Imperial Palace felt like a hellish place, and he suspected that Lang had deliberately assigned him to make his life more miserable. Raymond recalled his time living in the palace, where he was frequently covered in bruises from being bullied by his brothers. Not only was he mistreated, but everyone in the palace despised him because he was an illegitimate child. Compared to those harsh times, Raymond considered his life at the Belland Clinic to be like heaven. He remembered how even his father, the king, had abandoned him as a child, treating him as if he were filth that should not exist. In the Houston Kingdom, a nation founded on chivalry that did not recognize illegitimate children, Raymond was seen as a disgrace who tarnished the king's name. Raymond asked Lang again if he was truly required to attend the birthday festival at the Imperial Palace. Lang replied that if Raymond didn't like it, he was free to do as he wished, noting that the fees for the apprentice would ultimately be Lang's responsibility. Hearing this, Raymond felt a strong urge to hit Lang, but he resisted, knowing that acting on his anger would only lead to more trouble. At that moment, the system appeared and informed Raymond that a new medical quest had been assigned to him. The quest description stated that a large number of people would gather at the banquet, and since it was impossible to predict what emergencies might arise, Raymond's task was to ensure the event concluded without any casualties. The quest was marked as high difficulty, with the clear condition being that Raymond had to complete the banquet without any deaths. If successful, Raymond would receive a bonus of up to 3 level ups, 30 skill points, and gain someone's goodwill and some fame. Raymond was astonished by the high rewards for completing the quest, noting that they were 3 times greater than what he received for treating his first patient. Despite the impressive rewards, he remained concerned about the high difficulty level and wondered how he would handle any emergencies at the banquet if he couldn't treat the patients effectively. After carefully considering his options, Raymond confidently told Lang that he would attend the banquet. He also requested permission to take the official healer qualification examination once the event was over. Raymond thought to himself that despite the unfair and harsh treatment he endured, the only reason he remained at the Bellin clinic was his desire to take the healer qualification examination. He decided to stay at the clinic, enduring the mistreatment from his colleagues, because achieving his goal was worth the sacrifice. Raymond thought to himself that he couldn't just go to the kingdom without expecting anything in return. Lang questioned how Raymond could take the qualification exam if he didn't even have F-rank healing powers. Raymond replied that Lang had sent him to the kingdom because he believed Raymond was qualified to represent their clinic at the banquet. Therefore, Raymond insisted that he had every right to take the qualification exam once he returned. Lang began to regret his decision to send Raymond to the banquet. Lang told Raymond that he would agree to his request only if Raymond successfully accomplished the objective and returned from the banquet. Raymond was thrilled at the prospect of finally getting a chance to take the qualification exam. He thought to himself that once he obtained his healer qualification, he would be able to leave the Bellin clinic for good. Determined to succeed, Raymond resolved to make this the last time he would ever have to see Lang's face. On the day of the Imperial Palace banquet, Raymond stood anxiously outside the palace gates. It had been 5 years since he had last been in the royal palace, and he was feeling nervous and panicked. The thought of entering the palace overwhelmed him, and he considered returning to the clinic out of fear. Raymond reassured himself that since he had successfully treated the patient who vomited blood, Lang would likely be unable to dismiss him even if he chose to go back. Raymond thought that if he returned to the clinic, Lang would belittle him for retreating and failing to accomplish the task at the banquet. However, compared to what he might face in the palace, Lang's bullying seemed trivial. Raymond reflected that it might be futile for him to attend the banquet, given that he wasn't even an F-rank healer. In the worst-case scenario, he doubted he would be able to handle any emergencies, and he was certain there would be plenty of skilled healers present, making his presence unnecessary. Raymond wondered what would happen if a patient didn't respond to his healing, fearing that the patient might die. However, he decided to push this thought aside, remembering how everyone in the palace, from the servants to the royalty, had treated him like trash during his time there. With that in mind, Raymond no longer cared about what might happen to them and chose to run back to the clinic. As Raymond was running back, he suddenly stopped and questioned why he should flee when he had done nothing wrong. He reflected that he hadn't been born an illegitimate child by choice. He reasoned that the fault lay not with him but with his father, the king. Raymond realized he was merely a victim. He thought to himself that if he were still the weakling he once was, he would have fled without hesitation. However, he was no longer the same person. He didn't want to abandon the patients who needed his help. Determined, Raymond decided not to avoid the situation. He resolved to go to the kingdom and treat the patients who needed him. At that moment, the system appeared and informed Raymond that, because he had chosen to face his fears for the sake of the patients, his Heart of Steel ability had responded to his resolve. Its rank had temporarily risen to A rank. This enhancement gave Raymond a stronger will and, due to the increased proficiency, he would now be able to endure until the end of the banquet. Raymond was surprised to find himself calmer, realizing that his improved skill was the source of his newfound composure. Raymond wondered if this was what it felt like to have A rank proficiency. With his fear now gone, he felt a newfound confidence. He told himself not to be discouraged and reminded himself that successfully saving a high noble could lead to substantial rewards. This thought fueled his determination even further. Raymond decided to purchase some useful skills before heading to the Imperial Palace, believing they would be beneficial. As he browsed the shop, he found that he could only choose from 8 skills, as many items and skills were still locked due to his low rank. Among the available attribute skills were Flame Magic, Water Magic, Wind Magic, Lightning Magic, and Earth Magic, all of D rank, along with several others. Raymond was astonished to discover that he could learn magic using his skill points. However, since he was still at a low rank, he couldn't purchase the magic skills yet. He then navigated to the section where he could buy other skills. Among the available options, Raymond decided to purchase a skill designed to help him handle idiots and jerks more effectively. Raymond chose to purchase that skill because he anticipated encountering many nobles who might be jerks and idiots. Having the skill would make it easier for him to handle such individuals. With his preparations complete, Raymond was finally ready to head to the palace. Inside the palace, everyone raised a toast to the king, showering him with praise and congratulating him for his greatness. They expressed that no one was as remarkable as the king and credited him for the advancement of the Howden kingdom. The king of Howden was an exceptional knight and battlefield commander. He was a politician who genuinely cared for his people and a monarch who commanded the respect of the nobles. No one dared to mock the great king, as he was held in universal esteem. This respect was precisely why everyone spoke ill of Raymond. They believed that if not for Raymond, the illegitimate child, the king would have been seen as absolutely flawless. As a child, Raymond often questioned his own existence, feeling the weight of hatred simply because of his illegitimate status. People in the palace were heard discussing Raymond. One of them remarked that it had been 5 years since the Shadow Prince, as Raymond was known, had left. They expressed relief that Raymond was no longer in the palace, pleased to be rid of what they considered trash. One noble added that they had heard Raymond's healing powers were ineffective and that he was still merely an apprentice. As the nobles continued to speak ill of Raymond, he walked into the palace. One of the nobles spotted him and asked the others if that was really Raymond. Raymond had overheard their derogatory comments, but now, with his A-rank ability, Heart of Steel, he was unaffected by their words. Previously, even a glance could dishearten him, but now he remained impervious to their negativity. Raymond glanced at himself in the mirror and noticed that his appearance was particularly striking that day. With a newfound confidence, he was suddenly confronted by Princess Sophia, who was glaring at him with evident anger. Raymond recalled her previous disdainful looks, which had once deeply troubled him. However, now, they no longer affected him at all. Raymond recalled that Sophia had never been able to bully him severely in the past, partly due to her frail health, similar to the first queen. As he observed Sophia, he noticed that her complexion remained quite pale, leading him to believe that she had still not fully recovered from her illness. At that moment, someone called out to Raymond, referring to him as a rotten lemon. Raymond was shocked to recognize the voice. It was Sadal, the fourth prince and his brother. The familiar tone triggered a flood of memories, reminding Raymond of the times he had been bullied, humiliated, and tortured by Sadal. He still bore the scars from those past abuses, a stark reminder of his brother's cruelty. Raymond was momentarily paralyzed, feeling like a mouse caught before a serpent. Sadal, clearly angry and annoyed, demanded to know why Raymond wasn't responding to his question. Grabbing Raymond by the chin, Sadal scolded him for ignoring someone of his royal status. Raymond, now deeply concerned, felt the weight of the situation bearing down on him. Sadal scolded Raymond, insisting that he should not look down on a member of the royal family when he was nothing but a disgusting piece of filth. In response, Raymond activated his Heart of Steel ability, which helped him overcome his unjust fear and fortified his will. As soon as the skill took effect, Raymond regained his composure and calm. At that moment, the system notified Raymond that Sadal had been identified as a jerk and an idiot, activating the skill method to handle jerks and idiots. With the skill in effect, Raymond was completely unfazed by Sadal. He then lowered his head and respectfully greeted the esteemed fourth prince of the Houston Kingdom. Sadal was taken aback by Raymond's lack of fear and his confident greeting. He recalled how Raymond used to be so terrified that he couldn't utter a single word in his presence. Now, Raymond was completely unfazed. Raymond then inquired about Sadal's presence in a place typically reserved for healers, asking if he was feeling unwell. Sadal, puzzled by Raymond's unexpected behavior, was unsure how to react. He couldn't help but think that something was amiss with Raymond, as he was behaving very differently from the past. Sadal then told Raymond that he was not feeling unwell. Raymond, relieved, replied that it was good to hear and pointed towards the main hall, advising Sadal to go and enjoy the banquet. Sadal's frustration grew as he observed Raymond's indifferent attitude towards him. At that moment, Raymond noticed a patient who had collapsed from dizziness. He immediately went over to the man, asking if he was feeling all right. Sadal, meanwhile, was astonished that Raymond had completely ignored him and focused solely on the patient's well-being. Raymond told the man that he had come to the right place for treatment and assured him that he could seek help here if he felt unwell during the banquet, as that was the purpose of the area. Turning to Sadal, Raymond asked if something was wrong, noting that he was still standing in front of him. Sadal, feeling angered, thought Raymond was trying to dismiss him, and he snapped at Raymond, saying he was also feeling unwell and had come to the area to receive treatment. Raymond then asked Sadal to specify how he was feeling unwell. Sadal, unsure of how to respond, said he had been feeling tired and lacked energy. Raymond then asked Sadal if he had any additional symptoms, but Sadal replied that he had no other symptoms besides the fatigue and lack of energy. Sadal, in a menacing manner, thought to himself that healers often found these types of symptoms the most challenging to address. He wondered how Raymond would handle the situation and treat him. Sadal also considered that if Raymond failed to provide a satisfactory explanation, he would use that as an excuse to discredit Raymond. Raymond placed his fingers on Sadal to diagnose his condition and, with a cheerful expression, informed Sadal that his ailment was alcohol poisoning. Sadal was taken aback by this revelation. Raymond explained that Sadal's excessive alcohol consumption had disrupted his body's internal functions, which was the cause of his fatigue. He advised Sadal to reduce his alcohol intake to prevent further issues. Sadal, on the other hand, was irritated and at a loss for how to respond, as Raymond's diagnosis was spot on. He was frustrated that Raymond's accurate assessment left him with no counter-arguments. Raymond then asked Sadal if there was anything else troubling him. Annoyed, Sadal replied that there was not. With no further concerns, Raymond advised Sadal to enjoy the banquet and to moderate his alcohol intake. Sadal was irked that Raymond no longer showed the fear he used to, speaking to him with newfound confidence. At that moment, the system appeared and informed Raymond that he had successfully dealt with the jerk, earning him 5 bonus skill points. The system also recommended that Raymond focus on treating patients rather than being disturbed by rude clients in the future. Raymond, pleased with how he handled Sadal so calmly, was grateful for the skill he had purchased. He felt a sense of accomplishment in his ability to manage Sadal effortlessly and without fear. Raymond thought to himself that Sadal was actually quite foolish and inept, so there was nothing to be afraid of. At that moment, Sophia approached and asked Raymond what he was doing. Surprised by her presence, Raymond maintained his composure and greeted her. Sophia then remarked that Raymond had changed significantly. Sophia told Raymond that he used to be like an ugly rat but was different now. Raymond responded by saying that Sophia herself had not changed, she was still the same as before. When Sophia asked if Raymond was referring to her personality, Raymond clarified that he was actually talking about her appearance, complimenting her by saying she was as beautiful as ever. At that moment, Sophia changed the topic and told Raymond that she had come to the area to rest because she wasn't feeling well, but she was now going to leave. Raymond asked her what was wrong, but Sophia brushed it off, saying it was nothing serious. She added that she didn't have time to rest anyway, as she was about to deliver a speech soon. Raymond then told Sophia that she didn't look well and suggested she rest a bit before leaving. However, Sophia dismissed his concern, saying it was none of his business and adding that, as he wasn't even a proper healer, he wouldn't know what to do. She walked away before Raymond could respond. Raymond thought to himself that while Sophia remained as mean and rude as ever, he found her behavior more tolerable now, since she treated everyone the same way. Sophia then ascended the main stage, where everyone greeted her warmly. She thanked everyone for coming to celebrate her birthday and expressed her joy at being able to deliver a congratulatory message on this special day. However, Raymond noticed that something was off. Sophia was breathing heavily while giving her speech. As Sophia was delivering her speech, something went wrong, and she suddenly collapsed on the floor. Everyone was shocked and terrified by what had happened to her. One of the nobles urgently called for the healers to assist Sophia, but Raymond knew that she was the central figure in this quest, and it was up to him to treat and help her. Raymond was deeply worried, knowing that Sophia was the main protagonist of his quest. If anything happened to her, it would mean he had failed. Despite the efforts of several healers, including an A-rank healer, Sophia showed no signs of improvement, and her condition continued to deteriorate. This only intensified Raymond's anxiety, as he struggled to figure out how to handle the situation. Treating a regular patient would have been different, but Sophia was a princess. If Raymond intervened and failed to cure her, he feared the severe consequences he would face. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.